Hello, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. One of those three is correct, I'm assuming. City Council meeting, Yuba City Council today, January 15th, 2019. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Harris,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Cardoza,
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden,
Here.
Councilmember Espandola,
Here.
and Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Very good. We will have our invocation now by Mr. Bob Fischetti, followed by Pledge of Allegiance by Vice Mayor Cardoza, if you would, please.
Father, I'm grateful for every opportunity that we have to call on you. And tonight I'd like to call on you for safety, for peace, for comfort, and to call on you for wisdom, that every decision made in this place is made to honor not the individual, but to honor others. That God, you said to give honor to whom honor is due, praise to whom praise. And so, Lord, we just thank you for all that you've done over this city and all the lives that you've guarded and protected, and we ask that you continue to do that. In the name of your Son, Jesus, amen.
Amen. Will everybody please salute? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Bob. Thank you. Our agenda item 1 is presentations and proclamations. We have a oath of office given to Mr. Kevin Cooper, Chief Landon. Is right here. If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind joining you up front with you.
I was just going to ask if
All
you'd
right,
step
perfect.
up here, sir.
All right, thank you.
Officer Cooper, if you'd step up here, please. I'm going to have Officer Cooper / Sergeant Cooper in a few minutes introduce his wife, Kim, and your son is going to come up here with you.
Yes. I'd like to bring up my beautiful wife, Kimberly, and my son, Bryce. Oh, and y'all probably don't know, but my mama's on the phone. Say hi to mama.
We're going to turn this so you're facing your mother.
Okay.
She's my best side this way.
Do I need to hang on to this?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, cool.
You raise your right hand. I'm trying to get you over here where she can see. All right. I state your name.
I, Kevin Cooper,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
that
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Here's your chance to stick them.
First of all, I want to thank everybody who came out. The accolades and the votes of confidence that I received since the announcement and the appointment have just been overwhelming. And I know with that confidence and the grace of God, I'm going to go forward and do a great job for this city. So thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Kevin. All right, number 2, we have a proclamation for life-saving Yuba City emergency first responders. So we have to have, Public Safety Dispatcher Ashley Yetter come up front, please. Fire Captain Kevin Kennedy. Fire Apparatus Operator Marvin Zavala. Firefighter Logan Nelson. Bi-County Ambulance Paramedic Anthony Trowbridge. And Bi-County Ambulance Emergency Medical Technician Emily Butron. Please come up. Got the most important thing, excuse me. Eyeballs. You're laughing because you've been through the same thing. Yeah. This is a really remarkable event here. Reading through this, those who are first responders, and a lot of you here are tonight, understand that this circumstance under which this was successful, more often than not, results in tragedy. And it's because of these folks standing right here in front of you today. They work hard. The timing was in their favor, in the patient's favor as well. And they worked together and the system worked. Let me read this to you. On September 18th, 2018 at 4:25 p.m., dispatcher Ashley, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Yetter, answered a 911 call for medical assistance. The caller advised of a 43-year-old female unconscious and not breathing. Dispatcher Yetter immediately began providing CPR instructions to the caller while dispatching fire and ambulance units to the scene. Can you imagine how tough that is? He was probably a very frantic person too. Yuba City Fire Department Engine Number 2, consisting of Captain Kevin Kennedy, Fire Apparatus Operator Martin Zavala, and Firefighter Logan Nelson arrived at the scene just under 3 minutes after being dispatched. Talk about timing, right? Recognizing the patient was in cardiac arrest, they immediately began CPR procedures, utilized their AED, which is an automatic external defibrillator, and provided basic life support to the patient. Bi-County Ambulance Paramedic Anthony Trowbridge and EMT Emily Butron arrived and continued the life-saving measures by performing advanced cardiac life support. They then transported the patient to Rideout Hospital. The patient ultimately recovered and was released from the hospital 5 days later. That's it. Believe that? Now, therefore, this is the good part. Therefore, let it be it resolved that I, Sean Harris, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council and citizens of Yuba City we serve, do hereby recognize and commend the following individuals for their professionalism and dedication to duty, and then have, of course, today's date. So congratulations. Very, very, very good job. Thank you very much. They're all the same? They're all the same. Maybe if you guys can open them up like this. Stranger things have happened, right? Ron, you got it? All right. Oh, Ronnie got it too. We're going to give a couple minutes for folks to step out, and then we'll have another one here. Mike, if you're in the building, you can come on down. I don't see him either. Do you have his number? Oh, there he is, right there. Good. All right, Mike, welcome. Were you in the other room? Watching us on TV? It's okay. All right, so Mike here. We'll get those doors closed, and we'll start up. We're going to go have a big party. So Mike was the executive director of the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency for quite a while. Did an outstanding job running the agency. And I can honestly say that I believe that we would not be where we are today, as far along as we are as far as protecting our city, had it not been for his leadership and his effort. He played a significant role in that. And he's decided that it's time to move on to this next chapter in life. We're sorry to see you go, but of course completely understand, Mike. But it's been great working with you. Excuse me again, you guys. God dang. The Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency was established in 2007 as a joint powers agreement with Sutter and Butte counties. Mike Inamini is the executive director and director of engineering for the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency since its inception. He is in charge of an aggressive, get this, $312 million program to rehabilitate and improve 44 miles of levees in the Sutter Basin, primarily on the western side of the Feather River, which we all know means Yuba City. Mike held a key leadership position for the California Department of Water Resources in the Executive Flood Management and Engineering Divisions, serving as Flood Safe Levees Manager, Chief of the Levee Repairs and Floodplain Management Office, and Chief of the Construction Office. Mike's assignments included key flood fighting roles in the 1997-1998 floods, member of the National Science Foundation team that evaluated performance of New Orleans levees following Hurricane Katrina and Rita in 2005, program manager of the $350 million California Critical Repairs Program and the California Levee Evaluations Program, the geotechnical evaluation of 2,100 miles of California Central Valley levees. Department of Water Resources spokesperson on a variety of flood policy and technical issues. It's a lot of stuff. So therefore be it resolved that I, Sean Harris, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, do hereby commend Mike Anamini for his commitment and outstanding performance as the Executive Director of the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency and keeping the levee safe and secure for all citizens in the City of Yuba City, Sutter County, and Butte County. I hereby urge all residents to join us in recognizing Mike for his contributions to our community and wish him the very best in the future.
I just want to thank you for this high honor, and also want to let folks know I leave here with a heavy heart. It's been a real privilege to serve this community these past 7 years, and I also want to thank the city of Yuba City specifically. They've been true partners in this, and particularly professional staff of Yuba City. I've worked with a lot of cities, and you're blessed with some fantastic professional staff, as well as the electeds who serve on the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency Board of Directors. So again, thank you for this honor. It's been a real privilege.
Thank you again, Mike. Appreciate it. Let's move on to number 4, Sam Brannan Court Restoration and Conversion Award presented by Ben Moody. And there he is.
All right, good evening, Mayor Harris, members of the City Council. For the record, my name is Ben Moody. I'm your Deputy Public Works Director of Engineering. So the purpose tonight with this item is to award the Sam Brannan Court Restoration Project to the lowest bidder to basically renovate the Sam Brannan tennis court, so the Sam Brannan Park tennis court facility, into a multi-purpose pickleball / tennis court. And so a little background: in 1965, the court was originally installed. There was numerous resurfacing and overlay treatments, if people have been over there. So it was originally constructed about 2 inches thick over about 4 to 6 inches of base rock. And then when that cracks, they go out there every 10 years or so, and then they'll resurface it. And unfortunately, those cracks propagate. And so then you keep getting issues where it's in a bad state. And so in 2017, late 2017, a member of the public who set up the Yuba City Pickleball Club approached the Community Services Department and went to explore options on how to partner and how to bring more pickleball opportunities to the community. So we teamed up with Community Services and Public Works to put a project together, and we looked at it, and really based on the state of repair and you know, you could, to go in and resurface it, you could throw $100,000 at it and you would be back in the same spot in 5 years. And so it really needed to have a total reconstruction with a new surface. So a little back history: tennis has been declining. Many of you guys, you know, you don't see the tennis courts as popular as they used to be. Pickleball has really been picking up in the state and across other agencies. They've been some of the agencies listed here with Roseville, Citrus Heights, Livermore, Chico. It's really taken off where they're doing these big tournaments, and older populations and different interests. It's becoming really popular. So we put a project together where we would basically change those 4 courts into 2 tennis courts and 6 pickleball courts with some benches, improve the fences, and then also improve some of the ADA compliant ramps around the park. There's new ADA ramp and the entrance, and some improvements with the fences all the way around, and then really bring it up to grade so we don't have the drainage problems, and build a structural section that's going to hold up so we don't have this maintenance problem where every couple of years we're back into a cracked up kind of mess. So in spring, council approved the project to bid. We bid the project in the summer, and we struggled in the summertime to get bidders. It was real tough. The construction environment, the bid environment was really busy. We really called and pushed contractors to even pull some plans to bid it. And we extended the bid opening, and we got 3 bids in, but it wasn't great results. They came in over budget, and really when we talked to the bidders, they they were already busy. They didn't have the opportunity to really bid it tight, and so without that competition and the multiple bidders, the prices came in high. So we went back to the drawing board. We came back and value engineered it a little bit to take out some of those maybe fluff items that weren't necessarily needed, and then also really worked to see where maybe maintenance could partner by removing some of the existing asphalt and concrete to save some costs, and then also bid it when it's raining outside, where those contractors now they're really sitting on trying to get work ready for when spring takes off. And so we did that. We were pleased. We got 6 bids, a lot better bid environment. So we came in almost comparable bids, almost a savings of about $60,000 just bidding similar work just at the different times. So with that, we were happy. And Savanio Company, that's what they specialize in. So we looked into them a little bit to say who are they. They got a lot of history where they specialize in court construction with doing courts involved with Olympic Games to Pan American Games, and since 1963, that's really their thing. So we feel confident that they're going to give us a good product. Additionally, the way we bid this project with some of the concerns about the budget, we did an ad alternate where there was the fencing modifications. We did it as an ad alternate just to give us an opportunity to move forward if that came in too high. And so with this, we're recommending to do the full amount, the additional $27,000 for the bid alternate, because that will allow us, we believe that the construction company could do it cheaper than the city can, and then not having to come back and bid it again. The bid alternate, it's basically it's fence modifications that will, for adjusting the fence all the way around for the height, and then also putting some of these viewing windows in, so when they're doing the pickleball courts, you'll have these windows that open up for some stadium seating, I believe is the intent. So with this, the great thing with this project is really showing some community support as the fiscal partners that they've come through with the Yuba City Rotary Club, Yuba City Unified School District, and Friends of the Yuba City Parks and Recreation Foundation. I haven't seen in a project where I've been involved with where we've raised $75,000 that fast from the community with support that they really want to get this going. So it was nice to see. And so with this project, you'll see where we've pulling from multiple funding sources, community development block grant, these community organizations for $75,000, and some various funding from the community services budget. So with that, I recommend items, my recommendations, A through D. A being adopt a final Class 1 category exemption for the project. B, accept all bids and award to the lowest bidder for the total bid amount, including the ad alternate for $247,300. C, authorize the city manager to execute the contract. D, authorize the finance director to make the following supplemental appropriations 1 through 4. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Through the mayor.
You're here. Go ahead.
Ben, thanks for the presentation. Definitely appreciate the efforts of all the community agencies that are involved. Just have one quick question in regards to the monies being transferred from the vehicle replacement fund. What's not being funded or what's being delayed because of the transfer of this $51,630?
Now I'm going to let our Community Services Director, Brad, weigh in on that.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The answer to Councilmember Boomgarden's question is that in the last 3 years, we have gone through our parks and recreation assessment of our vehicles. And a lot of this funds come from the selling of equipment that we have not used for 2 or 3 years, and a van, 2 vans in our recreation department. So that's where the funds have come from.
Thanks, Brad.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with the vehicle replacement funds, but I do have issues with the $30,000 coming from the playground replacement funds. we've got some additional information that our CIP account's about 109. We're going to take 30 from that, leaving us basically 80,000. We've heard over the years the kids need affordable opportunities to do something in this community. The playgrounds is age 3 to about 10 or 11. I want to ensure that we're not going to take something away from the children in this community that is a free activity that parents utilize to put in pickleball courts. What is our options for the 30,000, and how much is it going to take to replace other playground equipment for these children in our city, and what is the plan for that going forward? I want to make sure they're not going to suffer.
Good question. We have about 3 years ago, we started a playground replacement program. Went through all of our playgrounds. We've got a list of approximately 24 when they were built. Playgrounds typically last 20 to 25 years. What is on the queue for this year, which would be the third out of 3 years, is Happy Park. Staff will be going out to bid for that. We believe it will fall under $80,000. And so we believe there will be enough money to replace the Happy Park equipment. The funds from that equipment have come when we have not spent. We've gone out to bid the last couple of years. We've done a new playground at Northridge, a new playground at Southside Park, and then now year 3 we are looking at Happy Park. So we anticipate bids coming below that 80,000, which it would not affect what those funds were dedicated for. If that answers your question.
Thank you.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Brad and Ben, I just want to thank staff for waiting and saving us citizens of Yuba City $60,000. And everybody's going to have fun here in about the next 6 to 9 months. There's going to be a lot of adults having fun on our pickleball courts. And I just want to thank staff again for, like I said, waiting and doing this the second time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council members, if you don't mind, I just kind of wanted to also tell the community and yourselves that the Public Works crew and the Parks crew are going to demo this project, which is a savings of approximately $50,000 as well. They took it upon themselves to take ownership of this project. They knew we were not going to have enough funds to do it the first time, and both departments came before us asking to help. So I think you need to know that as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just one clarification may I ask of Brad. The contribution from the school district, I believe that also they are going to be able to use the courts. So there has been the orientation toward adults using it, and I know they will, but I believe children will be using it, correct?
They will. So one of Yuba City Unified's paths that they have in their PE department is that they play pickleball. They've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. When we first brought this before council, there was a PE teacher, David Williams, from Gray Avenue, and he talked about pickleball and how he teaches 30 to 35 students a semester of that, and they'll be utilizing the facility as part of our multi-use agreement with Yuba City Unified as well. So that was theirs. I believe we have, at the time, the Rotary president is here. I don't know if he wanted to speak it or not, but he was part of Rotary that helped with the donation of $25,000 as well.
Didn't expect such a big audience here for the support of the pickleball court. Especially want to thank Dave Coonan and all those folks for coming out to support the park. But this has been actually a long time coming.
Dale, if you could,
Yes.
forgive me, could you please just state your name?
Yes, my name is Dale Eiler, 2261 Drummond Drive, Yuba City. And actually, as many times as we've asked that, I also sit on the planning commission for the city of Yuba City. So anyway, I just wanted to briefly thank the city for the opportunity to improve our city parks. And we're taking old, tired courts that really aren't being used, and truly for the benefit of the city. Last year, our Rotary Club was looking for a project that would help improve within the city, and our search really ended with the discussion with Brad McIntyre, who basically said, this really is a viable project. Keep in mind that Brad had to convince us that not only, you know, was this a major improvement, but also that pickleball really was a thing. Because most of us had never heard of pickleball. And anyway, so we really appreciate the impact that the Rotary Club is able to help along with the other contributors and donors for this project, and appreciate the opportunity to make a small impact on our city. So thank you very much, and would hope that you guys would approve this tonight.
Thank you, Dale. Any other member of the public wish to comment? All right, so now bring it back to council.
Through the mayor,
Yes.
I would like to have staff's recommendation of the bid opening for Sam Brennan Court Restoration and Conservancy Award, recommendation of A, B, C, and D.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We have first and second to approve staff's recommendation on agenda item number 4. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. Unanimous. Congratulations. All right, moving on to agenda item number 5. This is going to be probably a fairly involved because of the complications, but this is a culmination of a long process, many years of preparation and anticipation on both sides and many other sides for the community. This is agenda item number 5 is consideration of an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of use permit 17-05 and environmental assessment 17-10 filed on behalf of Stop the Dump, the site located on 140 Epley Drive in Yuba City. All right, so before we begin this, do we have any council members who need to make disclosures regarding ex parte communications or conflicts of interest?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have some disclosures I need to make.
All right.
First of all, I do not have any financial interest or any other interest in this matter before us tonight. I am not an officer, member, or employee of either Recology, Recycling Industries, or Stop the Dump. During and after the election, I have met with constituents, as is my right and obligation. I am also entitled to provide expression of my own views about policy matters of importance in the community, particularly during an election campaign, which I have done. Throughout my campaign, I have consistently been clear I held strong feelings about ensuring transparency, accountability, and a full and complete review of any project as permitted or required by law, a fair process, and protecting the health and safety of the citizens of this community. Consistent with this philosophy, and before I was elected, I have been supported of requests from whatever source for extensions to allow the public additional time to review the environmental documents associated with this project. I did not support such requests as a member of any particular group or party of this matter, but as a business owner and private citizen who generally supports transparency, accountability, and a fair process of all parties. While I have had serious questions whether the project initially met with the requirements of the city and state law, I recognize that there has been recent changes to the project as originally proposed and additional changes which are being proposed by the parties this evening, all of which I will consider with an open mind. I have also received new information as part of the staff packet provided to the public last week, which I'm also considering with an open mind. As I have stated previously, and I will state again, I have not predetermined this matter and will base my decision on the facts in the record as laws, facts in the records and laws as they apply to this project. Since the appeal was filed challenging the Planning Commission's decision, I have received the communications from the public and other parties and recycling industries regarding this matter, to include offers to visit RI facilities in both Sacramento and Yuba City, various general comments from concerned citizens as to hearing this matter. Please note, no specifics on this matter were ever discussed, as I expressed this matter would be heard on its merits when it comes before the council. I did not visit the RI facilities in either location, and I fully believe that I can hear and consider the appeal in a fair and objective manner and will base my decision on the evidence only in the record.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Through the mayor.
Yes.
I also want to disclose that I met with the appellant, Dave Coonan, Scott Coonan, and Dave Flores on January 12, 2019 at the recycling industry facility on 140 at B Drive in Yuba City. The meeting took approximately about an hour and a half. The initial meeting took place inside the recycling industry conference room with the appellates that I named. I was given a nice homemade chocolate chip cookie made by Dave, and I appreciate that. Thank you. The purpose of the meeting for me was to do some fact finding, listen to the appellant about their business history, the planning process, and overall understanding. After the meeting, I was given a tour of the facility and found it to be clean, odor-free, observed employees working, and well organized. The appellant showed me the new facility design, and I did not commit to any particular decision or outcome during these contacts. I believe that I can hear and consider the appeal in a fair and objective manner and will base my decision on the evidence only in the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yep, through the mayor.
Like to disclose that beginning early last summer, late spring, RI had an open house to the public. It was opened up to the public, and I made an appearance there and took a tour of the facilities, and he gave us this update, what his plans were for the future. And other than that, that's about it for me that I'd like to disclose to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir?
I didn't have a visit.
No visit.
No.
Well, I did. Beginning back even before I became a member of this city council, I met with Mr. Coonan, and I have met several times, 10, 20 on occasions, sometimes brief, sometimes for up to half hour, 45 minutes, discussing the project as we're moving along, including over a brief lunch in Washington, D.C. last year. All aspects of our communication was generic in nature, just basically discussing the project, where he wanted to go, with no commitment was made, no any bias was formed whatsoever. I also received a document from Mr. Coonan via email, which I would like to have the city clerk place in the record, if I may, which outlines the project, some details on the project, some pros, and some looks like some Q&A type responses and an Appeal Democrat article. So I'd like to have that placed in the record, if I may. And that is it. I too believe that I can make this vote fair and impartially with all the evidence and information on the record. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do real quick is explain what we're going to do here. So it's a hearing of the appeal decision of the Planning Commission, and we're going to use the following process. We'll have the staff presentation first. Stop the Dump representatives will then have 10 minutes to speak in support of their appeal. Recycling Industries representatives will then have 10 minutes to speak in support of their permits. I will then open the hearing to the public, and we'll give first priority to those who have a speaker card, and I do have one in hand so far. And after all members of the public have had an opportunity to comment, Stop the Dump representatives will have a total of 6 minutes to offer any rebuttal or closing remarks, if any. Recycling Industries representatives will then have 6 minutes to offer rebuttal, closing remarks, if any. I will then close the public comment portion of the hearing, and staff may then provide any comments or responses to questions raised during the public comment. And keep in mind, please, the time limits, and public comment is exactly that. It's not necessarily question and answer. If we choose to move forward and present a question to staff, that'll be at my discretion. I will then provide the council members an opportunity to make any comments. After appropriate deliberation, the council will then take action. Any questions on that so far? No? Okay, City Clerk, please note that staff reports and other written materials included in the agenda packet are hereby received and filed. And have any other written documents such as letters in opposition or support been submitted after the agenda packet was approved?
Yes, you have copies. All of the city attorney, city manager, and all council members have a copy. Also, there are copies out in the lobby, and the entire staff report is in a blue binder out in the lobby.
Okay. Can you please enter, you have also entered this into the record? All right.
Yes, I have copies.
Now, I don't think we have an issue with fire access. Is Pete here? Fire chief, are you happy, sir? All right. You're happy, I'm happy. All right. We'll move forward at this time with staff make its presentation and submitting any written documents. If council members have any questions, you can do so after staff presentation, or if you like, you can wait until after public comment period. All right. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. By way of introduction, for those that don't know me, I'm Dennis Cook. I'm a planning consultant. The city hires me occasionally to help out with items, extra work, things like that. And in the absence of your development services director, they've asked me to present this to you tonight. To start out, just with the procedural item, the back of this keeps falling off. Just to go over with the council what your options are for tonight. The first is to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission, which would be to deny the appeal and let their decision stand. Second would be approve the appeal and deny the use permit, which would put the existing use permit 1201 would remain in force. And then the third would be also to deny the appeal, but instead of denying the use permit, you can add, subtract, or otherwise modify the conditions of the use permit in any way that you see fit. So just to start with the, by way of background in Recycling Industries, they applied for a use permit to authorize to expand a previously approved use permit for their recycling facility. And that includes a use permit, a development plan, and the environmental assessment. Their proposal, and this is a summary. We picked the major items. To go through every detail tonight would take forever. But basically, their proposal is to expand what's technically called their large volume transfer processing solid waste facility, to expand from 3 to 4 acres, to increase the maximum daily intake from 100 to 300 tons per day. No limitation on deliveries, and that would be self-haul and commercial packer trucks. And to add a new 21,000 plus square foot building. This is in comparison to their previous use permit. They were allowed to build about an 18,000 square foot building that has not been built yet, and that old permit remains active if this doesn't go forward from here. Just for locational information, switch items here. The facility is in the Yuba City industrial area. Lincoln Road is right here, Garden Highway, the Lincoln Road, Garden Highway interchange right there. Then we have Epley Drive and right here, and Putnam Drive right here, so it's on the southwest corner of that. The Yuba City wastewater treatment plant is down in here, as well as other industrial uses around it. And the facility itself is about 1,900 feet as the crow flies from the nearest residence. More detail on the facility itself in this aerial photo. This right here is their existing 3-acre site, and you can see they have 5 buildings on it and other storage. And then this down here is the 1 acre they've asked to be able to expand into. Just some history of the site for this business. Their first use permit for this was approved in February 2008, and that was use permit 07012. And as you saw in the aerial photo, it was for the 3 acres, 5 buildings, and to operate the recycling facility. and the applicant is currently operating under this use permit. And then in 2014, use permit 1201 was approved by the Planning Commission. It is not yet effectuated in the sense that they haven't gone forward to do the improvements, and that use permit is valid until July of 2020, so roughly 17 months away. And it established it as a large volume transfer station. It provided for the removal of 2 of the buildings and construction of an 18,000 square foot building that has not yet been constructed. And it allows an intake of 100 tons per day of mixed recyclables and solid waste. Also, just generally what it was allowed to, in that solid waste, they could have up to 10% of putrescible, if I'm saying it right, material, which is odor stuff, food and items like that, waste that can cause odors. And then it was self-haul only, no packer garbage trucks were permitted by that permit. And the site plan for that, they have the existing 5 buildings here in red, and what the proposal was to remove these 2 buildings and replace it with the 18,500 square foot building. And again, that has not been implemented yet, and they have another 17 months or so to implement that. More recently, they came in for a request of further expansion of the business, and that's the use permit and development plan that's before you on appeal tonight. Generally, the request is to expand from 3 to 4 acres, to expand their maximum daily intake from 100 tons per day to 300 tons per day, to allow packer trucks and self-haul vehicles, and then no limitation on putrescible material. To switch over a little bit on the environmental document, because that is kind of the focus of the appeal, the process that we went through, or the city went through, the applicant was allowed to hire a firm to prepare the environmental document. It's called a negative declaration, and they hired a company that has expertise in that. The city hired another company with the similar expertise to do a peer review of that document. They provided the city with comments and concerns, and the city adjusted that document accordingly, and that was sent out for what they call clearinghouse review, which is to all the state agencies to review, as well as local agencies, and a 30-day, or I think a 20-day public review. After all that was done, and that was completed, Benchmark Consulting, city staff, Cal Recycle reviewed it, which is the state agency that oversees the recycling facilities throughout the state. The Yuba Sutter Local Enforcement Agency, it's the Yuba County Environmental Health Department that both counties utilize for that agency. And then the Feather River Air Quality Management District are concerned with odors and air quality issues. And then the Regional Water Quality Control Board, which oversees drainage and other types of water issues. After all of that, the agencies determined that with conditions and mitigation measures, all potential significant environmental impacts will be reduced to less than significant level. And the subsequent mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate environmental document. So it did have extensive public and agency review. Now, kind of switching over to the projects, this was modified from the Planning Commission staff report, and what we did was a comparison of what use permit 1201 permitted, what the original recycling industry's proposal was a request, and this is what your Planning Commission approved that is under appeal tonight. So the original request, or the original 3 acres requested 4 acres, the Planning Commission approved 4 acres. Maximum ton per day of input was the Planning Commission was stuck to the 100 tons per day and did not go with the 300 tons per day that was requested. Maximum putrescible material, I apologize if I'm saying that wrong, but the Planning Commission stuck with the 10% maximum. Types of deliveries, under the old use permit, self-haul only, no packer trucks. And then what the Planning Commission approved was, except for the source separated curbside recyclables, materials may not be accepted via packer trucks. And then the origination of waste restrictions, where the garbage and the recyclables come from. There originally were no restrictions, and the Planning Commission approved it, so the materials can only come from Yuba City, or Yuba Sutter counties and the cities within the counties. Regarding green waste, originally there were no restrictions. Through the Planning Commission, it's self-haul only, no packer trucks. And that recycle or that green waste has to be removed from the property within 48 hours. Hours of operation, originally under the use permit 1201, there were no restrictions on hours of operation. Through the Planning Commission, it was limited to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, closed on Sundays. And then the facility can stay open for an hour or two before and after, just to run their internal operations without the public present. And regarding noise, originally it was to comply with city regulations, and that basically is what the Planning Commission adopted although they added a criteria that if there are noise problems, we can require a noise study. There's certain time limits how fast they have to do it. And if they're out of compliance with what the city standards are, they have to come into compliance. There are other conditions that the Planning Commission approved. The type of materials they can take in are basically aluminum cans, glass, electronic waste, tire recycling, green waste, scrap metals, mattress bed springs, rolled carpets, and clean wood waste. And they cannot process the materials here. They bring it in, they sort it, and they ship it out, but they're not allowed to do any processing, tire shredding, anything like that under this conditions. Further, the putrescible material must be removed within 48 hours, and the applicant has to clean nearby roadways if there's waste along the road or wind-blown materials, and that was not previously in the criteria. And then that all utilized areas shall be paved. Right now, part of the property is not paved. So the site plan that was approved by the Planning Commission, excuse me, allows the site, oh, wrong button, sorry. I lost it, where'd I go? Oh, here we go. It allows the 1 acre expansion. From that old use permit, these two buildings were going to be removed and the other building placed over here. Instead, this building will remain. This building is to be removed and replaced over here, and there'll be about a 21,000 square foot building placed over here. Additionally, they'll have to improve the landscaping along the perimeter. There's customer parking here that has to be fully landscaped and restriped and cleaned up. And then there's new passenger vehicle, truck, small truck parking down here that also has to be fully landscaped as part of the commission's approval. There's something like 15 new trees added to the property as a result of that. And then everything has to be paved, either with asphaltic concrete or concrete. So to move on to the appeal itself, oh, there was some other Planning Commission conditions about. Wait a minute. This is going. Oh, I got it upside down. I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm not used to your equipment here. Okay, on to the appeal. The attorney representing Stop the Dump based the appeal on 2 points. The first is that the commission erred in voting to approve the project without recirculation of the mitigated negative declaration because mitigation measures and the description of the project were added. And I want to point out that the reference to mitigation measures and the description of the project, because we'll come back to that in a minute. So, and then the second part of the appeal was that the revised conditions of approval still require bonding and other methods to ensure enforcement needed to be added so that the construction and operation of the revised recycling center is fully enforceable. So in response to those two appeal items, and I mentioned that they said that the mitigation measures and conditions were revised. No mitigation measures were revised as part of the Planning Commission's approval, so that's kind of a moot issue as far as revising that. And then additional project conditions, they were added by the Planning Commission, but they were not added to avoid significant effects. What the Planning Commission attempted to do was to reach a compromise between the two parties, and that's the reason for a lot of the new conditions. The Planning Commission's incorporation, I apologize for getting in this level of detail, but the appeal is rather technical, and so we kind of have to respond with technical comments. The Planning Commission's incorporation of conditions of approval are consistent with the CEQA guidelines explaining that recirculation is not required when measures or conditions of project approval are added after circulation of negative declaration, which are not required by CEQA, which do not create new significant environmental effects and are not necessary to mitigate avoidable significant impacts. So as I mentioned, the project description utilizing negative declaration was based on the applicant's request. Even though the Planning Commission reduced the size of the project, and that will undoubtedly further reduce the environmental effects, no further mitigations were required by CEQA. Again, they did those new conditions to try to reach a compromise between the parties. So thus, the Planning Commission's added conditions of approval and corresponding changes to the project description do not meet the definition of a substantial revision as found in CEQA guidelines, and recirculation was not required. In response to the second part of the appeal, which is regarding the need to bond for enforcement of the conditions, typically bonding is used for ongoing operations such as proposed, and we tried to figure, there's different reasons, but we tried to find one closest to this. You use bonding when you have conditions difficult to enforce. They should only be utilized in extreme cases. For example, if you have a contaminated site and you have an owner that could walk from the property, you could require bonding to ensure that they do the work. If they don't, you have the money to do that work. In this particular case, the applicant has operated this business at this site for a number of years. To staff's knowledge, we have not received any violations regarding any conditions or otherwise operating to the detriment of others. So enforcement of conditions or otherwise controlling any obnoxious type of operation has never been an issue with the city. Also, the city already has adequate means to enforce the conditions of approval on any type of use permit. The zoning regulations right now has a section titled Failure to Comply with Conditions, which is right down this alley. It provides that a permit granted in accordance with this chapter may be revoked by the City Council upon failure to comply with any conditions of the permit. This process also allows the City Council to revise the original conditions of approval if needed. So if there are problems in the future, staff usually tries to work voluntarily with the applicant to come into compliance, but if not, we can always bring it back to the City Council for it's a public hearing, and you have every right to revoke or modify the conditions of the use permit as you determine or see fit. There's also a second place in the city ordinance that applies here for enforcement. And that is the zoning and regulations allow the planning director, now called the Development Services Director, to enforce the rules of the zoning regulations via the infraction process, which typically results in fines being levied if voluntary compliance cannot be achieved. The city has code enforcement officers that provide this function on a daily basis. And so, just like all kind of code enforcement, if there are problems, code enforcement can go out there. I always try to gain voluntary compliance, but in the end, they can issue citations and fines, and those fines multiply every day if they don't come in compliance. So to conclude, the Planning Commission approved project will not be able to expand its material stream any more than was approved under the previous use permit. The new project will operate under stricter conditions than it was approved under the previous use permit. There has been prepared and reviewed by qualified professionals an environmental document that concluded that this revised project will not create any potential significant environmental impacts. The subsequent mitigated negative declaration meets all of the standards established by the California Environmental Quality Act. Next, based on staff's review of the appeal and CEQA, the negative declaration does not need to be recirculated, and the city otherwise has adequate permit enforcement powers, so in our opinion, bonding is not needed. So more recently, the last recent days, the appellant and the applicant, I'm told, have met and come to a mutual agreement on modifications to the conditional use permit. These modifications placed revised and additional conditions on this project. Staff supports those modifications. Staff recommends, based on all of that, staff recommends upholding the Planning Commission's decision since the appeal lacks merit. But also to recognize the efforts of the two parties, Council is requested to direct staff to notice the appeal for the February 5th Council meeting with modified conditions of approval and appropriate resolution for final consideration. And we're asking for that continuance. And hopefully tonight, if you can give staff some direction of where you're headed with this, so we can return on the 5th with the proper documents. Whether it's this recommendation or whatever, we can return on the 5th with those documents. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. We also have the team here, environmental people, traffic engineers, attorneys, to answer any other questions if I can't answer it. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
All right. Thank you very much. We can now open the public hearing. We'll receive one comment card from the public. Excuse me one second.
Mr. Mayor, before we go into the comment cards, did you want to grant the appellants and the applicants an opportunity to speak? In other words, hear the applicant and appellants first on the public hearing?
All right.
It's up to you. Thank you.
It's not the order I have it here. Would you prefer that, sir?
My suggestion would be to hear from the applicant, Stop the Dump first, followed by the recycling industry's representatives for not more than 10 minutes each.
All right, Mr. Kang, if you got up, forgive me. We're gonna reverse that. We're gonna go back. We're gonna hear from the Stop the Dump folks first.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Bridget Barnes. I'm here representing Stop the Dump. And I wanted to first underscore that there has been a lot of work between my office representing Stop the Dump and the representatives of Recycling Industries. And we do concur that the most recent language distributed today with the amendments to the conditions are fully acceptable. With that, however, and to preserve the record, I need to go through a little bit of history here. I prepared a summary, some of which matches what staff said and some of it expands on what staff said. With me and PowerPoints, if I'm not used to the PowerPoint system for the same reasons the gentleman had earlier, I avoid them, and so that is why I distributed the outline for you. But technically, one of the points that I wanted to mention is that this has been prepared as a summary because it's my understanding, and based on my review of the application and all documents relative to the appeal, that that a portion of the permits were not properly noticed for tonight's hearing. I'm referring specifically to 1703. 1705 was noticed, and therefore, on the 5th of February, when we come back for hopefully final approval of conditions, at that time, 1703 has to be reopened also. I just wanted to correct that mention for staff. And that is one of the reasons we have the second hearing. On the page that I have marked, page 3, Summary of Environmental Concerns, we actually submitted 30 or 40 pages worth of objections and concerns raised to the mitigated neg deck proposed by the planning staff originally. And summarizing these, some of which have already been mentioned. At the time, the proposal included no limits on putrescent materials, and as staff has mentioned, closest residences are about 1,900 feet as a crow flies. The main objections had to do with the traffic congestion that was being presumed because of the inclusion of the trucks, and that there was no specific locus for where the trucks would be coming from. So it was impossible to whether to confirm or deny KDA's assumptions, Ken Anderson's assumptions in the traffic study relative to where the impacts from the trucks and what time they would occur. Related to that was air quality issues because the actual routes in terms of sourcing were not identified. I mentioned the smell issue. The other had to do with noise because of the hours of operation. There were issues related to fire, explosion, and hazmat that was not considered in the mitigated neg deck, greenhouse gas emissions that were not analyzed, and there were no biological analyses included in the additional acre that was going to be allowed. The water quality impacts in terms of the maintenance of the site was also an issue for us because unlike the presentation made by staff, the California Water Quality Control Board had cited the facility in Yuba City previously. However, and since then, as you know, immediately before the hearing on November 28th, the staff and RI, not Stop the Dump. I was never contacted about the conditions. However, we were happy to see the reductions from 300 tons per day down to 100. We were happy to see a limit back down to 10% on putrescent. We were happy to see the limitation, the extreme limitation on the Packer trucks and the closing on Sundays. And so we did concur at the hearing that those conditions were very helpful. When we received the actual written conditions, however, what jumped out at us was something I had already raised in my documents, which was that many of the conditions were self-policing. And what I mean by that is not that a city, and this city, did not have power to enforce it, but it assumed, because of generic language in the conditions, that the operations would be in the control of the applicant, recycling, and how to judge whether they were living within the scope of that condition were not covered. So the whole point of the work that I've done with recycling industry's attorneys has been to put specific limitation languages in the conditions to accomplish what we thought were the weaknesses that which RI's attorneys and their client have agreed to, and we've worked cooperatively, I would say, to accomplish that purpose. Going to page 7, and I have summarized again these changes in the conditions. I know that in your package you have the full analysis there, and it's redlined so you can see the changes. But with regard to safety enforcement, Recycling Industries now agrees that they're going to maintain the special insurance for a city-required third-party management field expert. This would be someone who's going to evaluate the conditions of their operations and provide recommendations. And the traffic queuing issues are twofold. Those are on numbers 19 and 23. So RI has agreed that all of the delivery employee and customer traffic will be directed on site and will be parked on site. On construction, that's on number 19. On number 23, they have agreed to limit the amount of time that the types of off-site big trucks that you would see, for instance, for concrete, et cetera, would be maximum of 2 months to reduce traffic. They've also agreed that the roadways that would be protected are the city roadways, and they are identified by name. Let's see, what else? Okay, also, number 35 allows the community development director only one level of review and approval, and that would be to technical amendments for the transfer processing report. All other types of expansions or requests for modification to the permits would come to the city council. You will see that in number 60. On water quality, the only issue that remains and that we emphasize, but they have agreed to, was that vehicle washing within the city must approve the location for that. On the they will be submitting, meaning RI will be submitting the storm permit from Water Quality Control Board before their occupancy permit. The time limits for these were not specified in the conditions that had been approved by the Planning Commission. On the issue of the garbage flow, there was no requirement that RI prove up the source of the waste streams. They have agreed to maintain logs and provide them now to the city at least every 90 days for review. On the host fee, they've agreed to negotiate that host fee with the city before they actually take possession of and occupy their new building. 59 requires that they must begin construction on the new building, the 21,000 plus acre building, square footage, not acre, I'm sorry, by March 31st, and they must be completed by September 30th, 2021, and that the permit would be voided in the event of noncompliance. 60 is that requires if there are requests for future modification, if it's consistent with city ordinances then in effect, and I'm not sure if the city attorney wishes to speak to this, but the specific language, your ordinances today, as I cover on the next page, provide for first review by the planning director, then if there is an appeal up to planning commission, and then finally to you as the last appellate level, the last appellate body. We have asked, and RI has agreed, that reviews of proposed changes to their application and expansion would come directly to the city council. There would have to be ordinance changes in order to make that fully enforceable. Therefore, RI also agreed that in the event that the city council does not approve ordinance changes, then the city will provide Stop the Dump with direct mail notice or email notice of any request for application so that we have the ability to appeal those condition application changes if we believe necessary. Okay. With that, I want to thank the city staff, the city attorney for working with us, and RI for working with us to try and achieve a final resolution. I ask that you grant the appeal but adopt the conditions as modified. Thank you very much.
To the mayor.
Yes.
May I ask one question of Ms. Barnes? And I'll be asking the same question to Mr. Mitchell as well.
Certainly.
Thank you. Just for the clarity of the record, it's my understanding that you agreed to the proposed revisions to conditions and do not object to the project approvals with the imposition of the modified conditions as proposed. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We have anybody here to speak on behalf of Recycling Industries? If so, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Patrick Mitchell. I'm a partner with the law firm Mitchell Chadwick in Roseville, California. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Recycling Industries, Inc. We're here from a unanimous 5-0 approval by your Planning Commission at the end of November, which was based on a recommendation of your expert staff report. We'd also like to thank the city staff for doing an excellent job. I essentially agree with everything in the city staff report tonight, just so you're clear on that. And we'd note that, as noted in that report, multiple experts, both in your city, outside experts hired by your city, some of which are here tonight, agree that the mitigated negative declaration was adequate under CEQA, which of course we entirely agree with. We don't think there were any legal issues ever with the mitigated negative declaration, and again, agreed with by your county staff and outside experts. The details I won't bore you with, because between your city staff PowerPoint and Bridget Barnes' presentation, I had a long PowerPoint at the Planning Commission, but I thought I would not suffer you through all that. But if you want to look for the details, it's in your packet, your staff report attachment 10s, my PowerPoint, and my client's PowerPoints. We had separate ones. Scott Coonan gave a presentation and I gave one as well. It's attachment 10 to the staff report as I understand it. And in addition, our detailed response to the appellant's letter stating issues with the mitigated negative declaration is attachment 21 to your staff report. So they put in a detailed letter saying their problems. We put in a detailed letter saying they're wrong. On their other issue of the mitigation measures not being enforceable, we entirely agree with your staff report. They're absolutely enforceable. I don't think there's any issue with any of them. They're typical mitigation measures in any city or county all over the state where I've worked. I see nothing in there that's unenforceable. And that was noted by your staff presentation tonight as well. So that's sort of the past, the way I look at it. For today and tonight, moving forward, we have worked with Appellant's Counsel, Bridget Barnes and I. We actually met the day after Christmas. I was supposed to be in Tahoe snow skiing, and I waited a day so we could meet, try to work this out, which didn't happen that day, but it started a trajectory that ended up that being the case. So we've been talking for about 4 weeks now, because we were talking a few days before then, trying to set up a date to talk. And we did reach agreement. As your city attorney asked, and when he asked me, he'll get the same answer. We went through a detailed analysis of what they wanted, additional revisions to the conditions of approval, which I might note for the record, many of which had nothing to do with the appellate points. But that's okay. We're trying to reach resolution. We're able to do that. So the agreement between Recycling Industries and the appellant tonight, we agreed to revise 11 conditions of approval, which have been stated already, but and I know you have the red line of those conditions of approval, as I understand it. But for the record, those are conditions 1, 4, 8, 16, 18, 19, 23, 32, 35, 50, and 51. And in addition, 2 new conditions were added at the end. The Planning Commission conditions were 1 through 58. We reached agreement and agreed to add conditions 59 and 60. And I won't go through those in detail. Bridget Barnes did, your staff did, and we'd be here for another 10 minutes doing that unnecessarily, in my view, unless you'd like to hear from me on all the details. I'd be more than glad to do that. When we were all done and we had come to sort of final conclusion on what the appellant and Recycling Industries thought would be acceptable revisions to the conditions of approval, which happened this Saturday past. We worked pretty much all day Saturday to reach that resolution with Bridget Barnes, and going back and forth with the clients, of course, and all the things it takes to do that.
Your city attorney then worked Saturday and Sunday to propose some clarifying changes, which we and the attorney for the appellant, Bridget Barnes, agreed with all of his proposed changes. They're all clarifying and good. So that all happened, and that's what ultimately led to what's in front of you as the red lines that we agreed to. So from our perspective, on behalf of Recycling Industries, we respectfully request the City Council of Yuba City to uphold the approvals that were approved by your Planning Commission, again unanimously, 5-0. And in addition, further condition the project with the red line revised conditions of approval agreed to by Recycling Industries, excuse me, and the appellant, and as I understand, also supported by the city attorney. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but that's my short presentation.
One question for you, sir, if I may. The conditions established by our planning commission and the conditions mutually agreed upon by yourself and Bridget Barnes' office, two separate things. Are any of them in conflict with each other?
No.
Okay.
That's, yeah, we worked
All
through
you
all
know.
those.
All right. Thank you very much.
To the mayor, if I could ask the same question. So so we're clear for the record, you agreed to the proposed revisions to conditions and do not object to the project approvals with the imposition of the modified conditions as proposed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And just a clarification, if I could, Mr. Mayor, our office does not approve or support of any sort of thing. We're neutral. We look at it as to the legal issues as to whether it meets minimum legal requirements. Thank you.
Understand. Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir. Moving on now to members of the public. Open hearing for public comment. Please remember all comments and questions must be made at the podium. Additionally, please, if you're inclined, please withhold your applause or any other responses so we can make sure we hear everybody. If you have any questions, please direct them to me. Staff can respond to questions after comments have been concluded. And if you no longer wish to speak when your name is called, if you change your mind, you do not have to come forward. We have one speaker here, Mr. King. And anyone else who may follow him will have 3 minutes to speak. A member of the public who previously requested additional time to speak in writing 24 hours in advance is normally allotted 5 minutes. And if there's any large groups, we encourage you to select a representative to express the opinion of your group. All right, so we have one comment card, and I can't not quite Sukhjit Kang. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sukhjit Kang, and I live on 1713 Morrison Bend, Yuba City. And I support Recology as a local businesses. They need a better location to grow, so they need location away from a residential area. There are many issues with the current site. Baseball field is just across from the current location. Bike lane, only place for bikers on the side of 99, is just next to it. There are many homes close by. The smelly trucks will impact on the traffic, and prices of the property is near vicinity. Please give them few years to find an alternative site, and meantime do not allow any expansion of current site. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else from the public care to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. Please step forward, state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I don't really need 3 minutes, but my name's Kathy Tinahero. I live at 1600 Hastings Court, Yuba City, which is east of Railroad and Bogan Railroad, right there. My neighbor just spoke. With all due respect, when I'm expecting company, I clean my house. So the fact that you visited on a day when things were clean and not smelling, that's great. But there's been plenty of times that I've taken bottles or cans or whatever, and it's very smelly. And on certain days during the summer, if the wind's just right, you can smell all that lovely recyclable, putrescible material. So I'm glad to hear that you guys have kept it to the same, but it is currently an issue. It's still an issue. So while I haven't complained publicly, I've neighbors, and we sit over talk over the fence. We complain a lot on those particularly smelly days. So I just wanted that noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else, please feel free to step up. One? Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Vincent Burns. I live at, this thing's not going to sit, 549 Clint Avenue or Clint Way. My shop is a stone's throw away from Recycling Industries, and I wanted to say that I never smell anything over there. I've never had a problem. I smell the sewer plant, poop plant, what we call it, a little every now and then, and that's it. And there's very little traffic around there, and I'm there a lot. So I just wanted that to be said.
Very good. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, sir. He beat you by about a half a second.
All right, my name is Suk Basi, 1635 Hastings Court, Yuba City.
Excuse me one second. Ma'am, did you get that name? Can you say your name one more time?
Suk, S-U-K-H, Basi.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I'm for ecology to expand and everything. I just believe the location where they're doing it, it should be somewhere else. This is right next to all of our neighbors where we live. We don't need to smell garbage all day long. I mean, I got nothing against business, but I just feel like they need to go away out in the country somewhere. And basically, you know, that's all our neighbors feel. You know, we don't have a problem. We all produce garbage. It needs to go somewhere. But that is not the right location. They just need to find a better location for it. I know it's zoned for industrial, but I think it could be taken somewhere else. You know, that's about it. That's my feelings. You know, I'm nothing against business. Business needs to grow, but this sort of business needs to be taken somewhere else. There are a lot of people from Sutter speaking for it. Well, let's move it over there. There's plenty of empty land over there. Why we need it in our backyard here? You know, that's all I have to say. You know, we just don't need it right there. It's just too close to neighborhood. People go for a walk. People take their dog for a walk on Levy. Why do we need to smell that? It's already bad enough, like the gentleman spoke earlier. We have to smell the sewer. Why? We don't need garbage there, right? So that's all I have to add. Hope you guys consider that. I know people that live there don't like it. You know, people that don't live, I mean, people that live there don't like it, but people that live away from there, like they live in Sutter, they don't mind. I had a question for a gentleman. I go, why don't we move it over to Sutter? He goes, well, Sutter people will not let you allow it. Well, why do we have to have it in our backyard? That's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And I'll get right back to you.
Hello,
Whoever
my-
wants to go next, you can stand up in the back wall if you like.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Heather Esseman. I live on 2020 Lincoln Road here in Yuba City, and I'm relatively new here, but I actually have kind of a different question or a different attitude about this whole situation. So, I don't know the owner or anything very well. I've just been going over there occasionally to see. So I wouldn't address anything about smell or anything like that. My question is, what is the city's actual plan for the future of waste management. So currently you have a situation where there's joint powers of authority, I believe, and you have different cities working together, including those cities in Yuba County. At some point, I understand Marysville's landfill was too full, so I suppose that's now going to Wheatland. That's my understanding. So is there some sort of a plan that the city has for the future of the waste management in the city that's anticipated some sort of growth within the next few years? Because if this is part of the plan, then that's fine. If it's not part of the plan, then they need to come up with some sort of an alternative, because just assuming that everybody in Yuba City is going to go over to Marysville to the transfer station for forever is probably not a viable solution for the future, and we need to consider things 20 years down the road and not just from right now from a standpoint. So if this fits in there, and actually I think the concept is really good, particularly for Yuba City residents, but in the future we have to have some sort of a plan set up in place so that we know, is this going to fit in with that plan? If not, if the city has no plan, then let the local businessmen do something. If not, then the city needs to come up with a viable, reasonable solution for us. Because I have to take half of my day to go all the way over to Marysville just to dump green waste. That's just sort of my open question. So.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
My name is Susan Jones, 545 Queensbury Way, Yuba City. And I would like to say that, let me see if I get this right. The Stop the Dump, alias the garbage company who had a comfortable monopoly on the garbage throughout this area, is now writing the rules for another business on how they will compete against them. The newer and much smaller company has bent over backwards to get approval to do business. Seemed to me that this whole process has been a shameful abuse of the approval process. And I would also like to indicate that try living without garbage removal. You will see really dangerous and damaging things within a matter of days, if not less. We need this process. This is not a large experience that we have to go into great detail about. It needs to be done. It will never be perfect for anybody's location, but try living without it.
Thank you very much. Sir.
Hi, my name is Justin Lane, 1160 Jean Court, Marysville. I just want to stay, just because I had to come to Yuba City today already, and I got behind a truck that was hauling bags to the dump, Recology, and he lost garbage on the bridge. Well, what'd that do? Rainy day? About cause an accident. Everybody stopping, swerving. So, with that being said, if we keep the traffic on the back roads and off the main roads, come to Marysville and see the traffic. I mean, we got all the garbage going into Marysville, Recology. I live maybe a mile away. Yeah, I smell it, but it's been there for how many years? It's at my back door. Yeah, you get a fly problem here and there, but, you know, without that being said, I'm for the transfer station. I hope they put it in. I come to Yuba City to do dump runs for my grandma. Why should I take it to Marysville when I can take it right here? I feel that we need a transfer station here to help out with the traffic over there. People are worried about the traffic here. Come to Marysville at 5 o'clock at night. It's crazy. So that's all I got.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else? All right. We've had the last public comment. I'll go ahead and allow an opportunity for rebuttal from the appellant and the applicant, if they're interested. Appellant, going once? Nothing, ma'am? Okay. Applicant? Nothing, sir? Okay. Staff have anything else to add by chance? No. All right, thank you very much. Council questions before we close public hearing. Anybody have any questions? Nothing? If you have one, go for it.
Mr. Cunin, can you step up? Podium, I got a question for you, please, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Scott Cunin. I reside at 1754 Columbia Drive in Yuba City, and I'm the owner of Recycling Industries. And I must say that when I first walked in and saw all the law enforcement people, I thought we were going to have a war here tonight. But anyway, your question?
Yes, Mr. Cunin. Thank you very much. I'm just thinking this as the worst case scenario, as how it's going to be done, because there's every day. I'm just thinking of the worst case scenario. This was mentioned to you at the planning. This question was mentioned to you at the planning commission, and I really didn't get an answer from you. I'm hoping you can give me an answer tonight. And this is going to be concerned odor. Yes, sir. If you get an odor complaint on your facility, how are you going to handle the situation? If you could please answer that. And the worst case scenario.
We have in this building, this 21,600 square foot building, we have a misting, an odor preventative misting system that goes in the roof. And that will prevent a tremendous amount of odor. Second of all, we are having a wash down every day, a wash down procedure to wash the floors for anything that might be held there. I don't recall if you've been to our plant in Sacramento. Have you been to that?
No, sir, I did not. That's right.
Our tonnage in Sacramento, we take in probably tons per day. David, how much? We take in about 200, sometimes 300 tons a day, and it all is, it goes into a large bunker. And I have had people, many people there, look at that site. Members of the, used to be Mayor DeBall came down, and there's just there's no smell there. There is also, I think the transfer station that's right next to us, it's not over probably 400 or 500 yards away in Sacramento. Actually, it's North Highlands. The county has a transfer station there, and we've taken numerous people over to that transfer station. It's an open air, principally an open air transfer station, and there's just no smell there because this stuff people bring in things, they dump it on the ground, we help them unload their trucks, vehicles, whatever the case might be. We scoop it up, load it on a truck, and it goes to Sacramento or wherever the dump is that we haul it to. It just doesn't stay there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. And I have one more question for you, sir. This is concerning trash falling off vehicles and so on and so forth. Recology has approximately a mile to a mile and a half entrance to their site. We're going to say from Buchanan to the transfer station site, and that's more or less Highway 20, one-lane road coming in. And your site's going to have several directions. They're coming from Bogue, south of you, north of you, Lincoln, and so on and so forth. You mentioned in the Planning Commission meeting that you have one gentleman that does an excellent job that takes care of.
Yeah, that's Charlie. I think he's hiding here somewhere.
Yes, yes. So, yeah, thank you. Yes. So here we go. Worst case scenario, sir. This is just worst case scenario. You're going to be doing great. You're going to be having lots of people coming to your site, we hope, and we're going to have trash scattered throughout. So this gentleman, or if this gentleman gets overwhelmed, are we
incapacitated?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no. Well, I'm just going to say overwhelmed. Are we going to be able to step up and help this?
Definitely, that's not a problem.
Okay.
We do that in Sacramento. Charlie, at the present time, is the one doing it, and if Charlie chooses to retire and We hope he doesn't. We hope he stays around with us for quite some time. But we've always provided people, even at our location on Power Inn Road in Sacramento, we police up and down Power Inn and down Cucamonga. And on this particular site here, we will go Epley Drive, Putman Drive, Burns Drive, and also up and down, what's that, the Highway 20,
Garden Highway.
Garden Highway.
Okay.
And we'll go up and down Garden Highway too. We'll do whatever it has to take
Okay.
to keep it clean and neat. That's the secret.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cunin. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, real quick. Since you're up there, I have a question.
Yes.
Are there? We talk about a lot of things based on Vice Mayor Cardozo's question about odor control.
Yes.
A lot of folks have stepped up tonight, and I completely empathize with that. I've gotten a lot of emails, but that seems one of the major concerns and fugitive
Yes.
debris. Is there anything that we've talked about as far as odor control that you're going to do that you are not doing already?
Yes, we don't have any misting system at the present time. And at the present time, any wash down that we do there is minimal because we do largely, aluminum cans. The young lady that, bless her heart, that came earlier and said I can't remember, I don't recall what her name was. She said that it didn't, she experienced a lot of odors and she lived quite some time away. Oddly enough, I live over in that area also, and I've never noticed any odors. If there's any odors at all that came from anything that we did, I think it would come more from the sewer treatment plant than from us, which I've heard has been a problem. I understand it's been mitigated some way. But those are the only two things that I can think of now that we will be doing that we're not doing at the present time.
All right. Just so I'm clear too, you're with only no additional, 100 tons a day max, right? Only 10% of producibles. And it's only going to get better because you're adding these additional odor control issues, correct? And
I'm sorry, say that again.
You're not increasing your intake, but you are adding measures to control odor, so it's going to get better. You're going to improve what's already there. Is that correct? Does that make sense? In addition, I believe, to the misting, you're adding a chemical that also controls odor, if I read correctly.
I would assume there is a chemical. I have not going into the chemical analysis of what's in that misting system. We haven't bought it yet, so I can't answer that question.
Okay. I thought I read something about that as well. Did
Yeah.
you read that?
Yes, through the mayor. I'm not sure, Mr. Cunin, if it's going to be you that answers this or your son, but I also will have questions for Ms. Langley concerning the city and our wastewater treatment plant below. Part of this process is getting the public input because it does affect them and along the lines of the smell. I have not visited your facility in Sacramento, but previously I'd spoke to your son. And what is the size of your facility in Sacramento?
We have a 155,000 square foot building, 35 feet high. It sits on 8 acres.
Okay. To that point, we're looking at a 21,000 square foot building, taking roughly 50% of the same amount of waste that you're taking in Sacramento. So just by simple math, the smell should be less in Sacramento because we got a larger area for it to dissipate across. This new system, very much inquisitive about it because unlike an open air system, the offloading of materials, the sorting materials will all be contained inside, correct? Nothing is exposed to the exterior. It's all within
That's
four
correct.
walls.
That's correct.
Okay, and that would include, I guess, roll-up doors for the people to pull in through. They would be somehow mitigated where they're rolled
correct.
down.
Actually, they're sliding doors.
Okay. And then with that, I would be, curious more about this misting system because I'm an animal person. I have horses, I have dogs, and at the end of the day, if my dog's out running in the rain or my horses get wet, they just smell like wet dog or wet horse. So can you explain how wetting down garbage is going to, I know it'll cut down the dust, but I'm more concerned about how it's really, and I want to understand how that's going to mitigate the smell issue that we've heard over and over tonight.
All I can tell you right at the present time, because we have not purchased it, nor have I seen one in operation, but I know they exist and I know they work, and that's really, I'm sorry that I can't give you more information in that. It's not something that we've gotten into. I see David is coming up and he's done some research on this. He may be able to answer your question.
Thank you.
David Cunin, 1169 Claro Court, General Manager, Recycling Industries. The overhead misting system has an odor neutralizing agent that's put into it. It's fairly typical for enclosed buildings that are transfer stations. I would direct your attention to our local enforcement agent, Andy Davis from the Yuba County. That man is the police officer for transfer stations. His role will be to physically inspect our facility for all these issues that are being brought up by the public and to ensure that we're in compliance. And odor is the same, will be under the same scrutiny that Recology's transfer station is in Marysville. Now, to date, I've gone through several of those reports. They haven't even gotten an odor issue from, at least from state standards. The other thing for us is, what's different about our Sacramento facility compared to this facility is our Sacramento facility is a recycling facility. It does get a fair amount of garbage, but it's pure recycling, and we're not under the 48-hour threshold. I think that's a key thing that the residents here need to understand is the Feather River Air Quality Management District opined and weighed in on this project and determined that because the material was not going to be on the ground legally for more than 48 hours, there was no threat for an odor or decomposition to set in. And that's one of the biggest, that's probably the biggest contributor of odor is if it sits for more than 48 hours, you know, it starts to decompose. So that's what the putrescible limit is too. We're limited to 10% putrescible waste. The LEA has determined and said there's a method to determine that putrescible waste, and as part of their monthly inspection, they will do sampling tests to determine if the waste pile has more than 10% putrescible waste. And they can do that and enforce it, and they have probably more enforcement authority, I think, than the city in that they've got 4 or 5 pages of conditions they have to enforce us on, and they can shut us down quite fast because they're going to be there every month required, whereas code enforcement would only show up if there was a complaint. The LEA is going to be there every month going through the 40 or 50 things and ensuring that we comply with what's called the transfer processing report. So hopefully that answers your question as far as overhead misting system. The water on the mist actually you never feel it. If you're standing underneath a 30-foot roof, I've seen these systems, you won't feel it. It just keeps the odor down. And then my father mentioned we have to do the night washing, and then certainly the 48-hour removal. I would, you know, we took some planning commissioners there. We took them to the 2,000 ton a day transfer station, and with all due respect to what people say, I mean, Commissioner Dale Eiler stood 50 yards from 1,000 tons of garbage, which we would never have, and I believe his opinion would be that he didn't smell anything. So I think with it being indoors and the fact that we're turning, that's why the size of the building is kind of a little error. We've got 155,000 square foot building because we store recyclables. It takes a while to get it shipped. In this arena, the garbage hits, we got to get it on the truck, we got to get it out. So we'll never have a pile or storage that's any more than half a day because it's got to move every 48 hours.
Okay. Along those lines, the gentleman you referred to, he's here this evening.
Mr. Davis, Andy Davis, the local enforcement agent for the state.
Okay. We could say in his expert opinion that the enclosure building with the misting system should resolve the concerns of the citizens who live nearby and crawling.
If we're going to ask him a question, I'd like to have him come up.
That's fine.
Did you have another question for me, or did you want to go to? I'll stand by.
I would hold tight. I'm probably going to come back.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Andy Davis, local enforcement agency, Yuba Sutter counties.
Could you ask your question again, please?
Oh, in your expert opinion, as code enforcement, will this enclosure and this misting system eliminate the odors 90%, 95%, 100% that the residents who live nearby are concerned about?
Okay, in my expert opinion, it's not the code enforcement. I want to say we're different. I inspect the facility on a monthly basis, unexpectedly. It's not something that I set up. I don't have an expert. I can't answer that.
Okay.
You know, because it's not there. It's kind of a hypothetical thing. I'll say this: the transfer station that I currently inspect, you know, I've been the LEA for about 3.5 years. I haven't had a complaint there. That's my only experience. And they have a misting system. I can't tell you if they have the chemical component that they're going to have, but I have not had a complaint there. But yeah, I can't answer that because it's not, you know, it's not currently in operation. I can't speak for that.
You can just speak to the ones that you've experienced. You
Correct.
haven't received a complaint
Mhm.
on. They've been pretty much odor-free.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I can continue, I have a couple
go
more. Ms. Langley?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Thank you for answering this. As a recent survivor of the belt room, I believe is what you called it, down at the water treatment plant. And you showed me the complexity of the plant. What will this wash down procedure, is there measures with it being so close, because you talked about things coming into our wastewater treatment system? Is there any concerns from our wastewater treatment with any wash downs or anything going on at the transfer station just north?
No, we have a pre-treatment coordinator, a pre-treatment program. As part of their building permit process, we will be reviewing their plans and looking at what measures are required to be put in place in terms of fats, oils, grease capture, trash capture before it goes into the sewer system and goes to the wastewater treatment facility. And then as part of that, we will do inspections.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Langley. Mr. Cunin, back to you. Just final couple of questions here. Based upon all the information that was coming to us rather quickly, I commend both sides for coming together, trying to work this out. Stated by your attorneys, this is all agreeable to both parties. But further, would you agree that this is far limiting from what was originally proposed when you proposed going from the 300 back to the 100 with the 10%? This is not what was presented a year ago, basically. We're back
If you're referring to our original application,
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to? Yes.
Well, the original where you upped it to the
To
Packard
300
trucks,
tons.
yes.
To 300 tons. Yes, this is restricted back to actually more restrictive than what we currently have with our existing transfer station permit.
Okay.
That was brought up. We haven't effectuated that. They didn't build the building. We couldn't receive any garbage. But anyway.
Okay, but you would say it's more restrictive than what you currently have, and
Absolutely.
all parties have agreed to this.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Cunin.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cunin.
Through the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this, my questions might be for our city staff. So, and it's Ben or Dennis. And I'm glad to have Andy Davis here today because that was one of my questions about how often was this facility to be monitored. And with all the conditions that have been raised and agreed, my question or my thoughts concern mostly about, I think it was presented about accountability. Who's holding each other accountable in the process, not just in the process, but in hopes that something positive occurs here. How are we going to uphold the city's accountability to make sure that those logs that are required, that the debris is not occurring. How consistently are we planning to make sure that those things are happening by us in the city to assure that these conditions are just not being held on the applicant's side?
The the city's responsibility with the, say, the 3-month reporting, the city staff is just going to have to follow through to do that. The main issue that I've heard tonight is about the odor, and something that didn't come up was the Feather River Air Quality Management District that oversees that also, in addition to all of this. And they do, I believe, have measuring devices if need be. And so from the staff standpoint, you got the local enforcement agency and he's out there, but also if we receive complaints or notice the odors, we're going to call the Feather River Air Quality Management District, and they have enforcement powers as well as the city. As I mentioned in the staff report, the city ordinance gives the council great authority to revoke the use permit, bring it back to revised conditions, and so there are all kinds of enforcement procedures to follow up with if need be. Businesses know that. I mean, the city does use permits and all types of permits all the time. And typically business owners respect that because they don't want to have to come back here and go through all of that. And so it's usually not too much of a problem. This site has been there for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, I believe. And that I'm aware of, the city hasn't received any odor complaints or any other complaints. So we're not anticipating a problem, but there are certainly plenty of tools there to enforce it if need be.
Yes, as I reviewed all the thousands of pages at this point, that and I'm glad that you pointed that out, that the city had not received specific complaints or citations had not been issued. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
So the monitoring as we continue forward, I believe, is something that we need to have a clear process in that as we look at this, hopefully come to some agreement at the council level. But my concern is that if we're discussing odor complaints and no complaints have been given, if we're discussing debris complaints but no complaints have been submitted in the city's aspect, I would say. So how can we make sure that this is going to be upheld? That's my biggest concern.
Well, okay, to be honest, the city doesn't have staff that drives around checking on businesses every day. We're not the city police that checks on business doing that, and I don't think businesses want that. But if we receive complaints, we have code enforcement officers that go out there to inspect it. And like I mentioned, there is plenty of enforcement capabilities. I think Darren would like to say something here also.
So Darren Gale, your interim development services director. Actually, just today we met with our code enforcement officer, and we discussed this very specific project. And we wanted to set up a plan of how to make sure that we can ensure that the conditions are being followed. What we can do is make sure in the next council agenda, if this is brought back on the February 5th, we will describe what that is. But we talked about at least quarterly site visits by a code enforcement officer, at least for the first year or two, that we would then record that within the use permit to demonstrate that they followed those conditions. And then as time goes by, maybe it's 18 months that we do that, and then we go back to what we do on most of our cases with code enforcement, which is we're responsive when we receive a complaint. But at least initially, we can demonstrate the code enforcement went out and we ensured that the conditions were being followed. And of course, that would be in addition to all the other items that were discussed this evening with the LEA, the Feather River Air Quality Management District, your sewer pretreatment, and going out and taking a look. Also, we do have a site very nearby where we can have employees very easily drive by from a variety of different departments to check on this. But very specifically, we do plan, and like I said, we just talked about that today. And Councilmember, it's a great question, and I will make sure that we provide something in the staff report to just give you as an attachment what we plan on doing and kind of how long.
That would be wonderful, because in that, there's a lot of conditions that it's stating that the city will, determine, approve, review, monitor. And so in these conditions that we were given as final modifications, it would be much more helpful to have that separated, so I can see clearly what's the responsibility by each party and what we are responsible to adhere to in this agreement as well.
Good. All right. Anybody have anything else? All right, we'll go ahead, and if no one else from the public wishes to speak, public comment period, we'll go ahead and close the public comment hearing. Bring the matter back to council for deliberation, discussion, any comments? And a motion. Yes, sir.
Just a few comments. First, I'd like to thank our city manager and our public works director for the briefing I received yesterday. Addressed a lot of the questions that have been raised this evening regarding a lot of the questions that came up. I also want to recognize the efforts of both sides of who've come together to make a very contentious issue come to some sort of a compromise. I can gather it probably was not a very easy process, but to Recycling Industries Council and Stop the Dumps Council and to our council, applaud your efforts in seeing that happen. As a former person who was in charge of code enforcement as a fire chief, I recognize that the public will likely be the first line of defense when it comes to anything that's going on that causes grief, i.e. trash, odors, etc. So it will be incumbent upon us as a city to be responsive to those complaints as they come in and address those concerns. And as one person on your city council, I'm committing to the citizens that are concerned about the issues down there that we will be vigilant and make sure that as those complaints come in, they'll be investigated, and if actions need to be taken, we'll see to that happens. I'm pleased that the LEA will be actively involved in random visits and inspections. I think that was new information to me, so thank you, sir, for being here tonight and being available to answer that question. Probably my biggest issue throughout this whole thing was keeping material from outside of Yuba and Sutter counties from coming into our city. So I'm very pleased to see that. That is a condition of the agreement that has been made. It is, as a person who walked a lot of Southeast and South Yuba City during the most recent campaign, to say that it's not an issue would be not necessarily true. As I stood on people's doorsteps and engaged in conversations with them, they are aware of the issue. I do know, again, from experience of working for this city for 30 years, they don't always come to public hearings and voice their concerns, but they did when I was campaigning. So I trust that not only Recycling Industries, but we as a city will be responsive to our citizens should any problems develop. But once again, thanks to those who came together to take this fairly long, drawn-out process and seem to have us on a track to address it to the mutual satisfaction of all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I'm gonna, to the mayor.
Yes.
I'm gonna piggyback on what Councilman.
I'm Boomgarden.
Yeah, I know. I lost it there for a second. I'm sorry, Mark. Anyway, I want to thank staff. I want to thank the Cunans and also Stop the Dump. This has been a long process, and hopefully tonight it's going to come to an end. And I wish good luck and prosperity in the future for the Cunan family. And with that, I would like to make a recommendation.
You can by that mean motion?
A motion,
Let's
yes.
give everybody an opportunity to speak
Okay.
if we may first. Do you have anything to say, sir?
Mr. Mayor, just ditto. Thank you for all the parties coming together.
To listen to both sides, it's really important to have that opportunity, and I really thank both sides, but I also thank the community for showing up this evening and be willing to share your thoughts, concerns, and that's really important. I think that that's probably the most important part of this process. And I hope that we gain from this process some fairness, some transparency, and some consistency in the process. I'm hoping that as a strong council, we'll be able to deliver this message across within our city staff and in the community, and that we gain the trust of you from the community to not wait to the moment that it's become such a difficult situation that we have to come to these large numbers of conditions. That I hope that we'll be able to have this remediated and mitigated even prior to that. And I'm hoping that our Planning Commission and our representatives in those have those kinds of standards as well as we represent the city, and part of that is it's important for me to have fairness and transparency. So I thank our city staff for doing tremendous amount of work. It's taken extra effort, but we wanted to make sure that it was fair and accurate and clear, and here we are at this moment. So thanks for your time.
Very good. I'll take a chance or an opportunity right now too to also recognize the efforts of city staff and then also the folks at RI and even the folks at Stop the Dump. I know that there's a lot of hours, many hours, and probably not more than a few sleepless nights, perhaps on both sides, that went into the effort. And our city attorney, I know, he's been really busy, and even on a personal level down there, working on things for us. And this is a culmination of a lot of efforts. It's a culmination of a lot of people who have demonstrated their ability, not only a dedication to their cause, but an ability to negotiate, to be fair, and come to a reasonable conclusion for the benefit of not only the business, but the folks who are concerned about that business, and most importantly, our city and our residents. I am not immune to the fact, and I appreciate the fact that we, at least Councilman or Vice Mayor Cardoza and I think I stopped counting at 2,000 emails from folks. I think it was from the Stop the Dump website somehow to my home email in opposition of this project. I received fewer in support of it. However, knowing that everything came to a head on both sides, and at the top of that pyramid is an attorney. And that attorney represents all those people. And if both sides of those attorneys represent those people, if they can come to an agreement on their behalf, I'm good. And we've asked a lot of good questions. I'm very proud of all of us up here that we've clearly put a lot of effort into it, and as we should. It's our job. And we came to I think a reasonable and logical conclusion based on the work of many, many people. So I thank you for that. With that noted, I will entertain a motion if there's one.
Okay, through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution denying the appeal and approving the adoption of the negative study and the migrated negative declaration EA 17-10 for the project and use permit 17-05. And there's something else. Yes, sir.
To the mayor, if I can clarify your motion. So your motion is to direct staff to come back with that resolution consistent with the direction that's the proposed revised conditions at the next meeting for final approval on February 5th. Is that your motion?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I have a question before we actually take the vote.
All right. You're getting that close, man.
I was on it. In regards to this matter, part of how we ended up at this position tonight has been through the inconsistent message that has gone on about this project for quite some time. May I ask a question of our attorney?
Yes.
Mr. Chaffin, is it possible that our city manager, in conjunction with our mayor, put together a specific fact sheet describing what happened here tonight? Because as the mayor said and as Councilman Boomgarter said, there's a lot of contention out there in this community, and misinformation is what we cannot have. Can we put together a press release fact sheet that shows what actually transpired, so the public doesn't think that there's a 300-ton a day limit transfer station going in, but all of these, we don't have to get specific with 60 some odd conditions, but to let them know what's actually occurred, because we need to be transparent, as Councilman Espandola said. And can that be something that can be added and looked at to where it's done prior to the February 5th meeting, so the public knows what we actually did here tonight?
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw. It is a legal option for the council to direct and authorize both the city manager and working in conjunction with the mayor to put out an educational press release as to what happened this evening as to the major points. It would require the direction of the council in order to do that. So one option for you would be to ask for a friendly amendment as part of the main motion in order to include that as direction and authorization as appropriate.
Thank you. Then, Mr. Mayor, would Vice Mayor Cardoza be in support of a friendly amendment to include an informational press release to be drafted between our city manager and you as the mayor of this council?
It's good with me.
Sounds good to you?
Okay.
All right.
So I need to go ahead.
One second. Just to clarify, you just want to summarize what we're approving tonight, what we're doing.
That is correct.
The final product.
Final product, so the citizens of this community know what we're coming back before us on February 5th.
I think that's reasonable.
To the mayor, for my clarification, procedurally, we need to have Councilmember Espandola also agree to it because she gave the second as to whether or not she wants to do that. And then my suggestion is that if there is any such release done, that it would note for the public that there is going to be a continued public hearing on February 5th. Where the development permit portion can also be heard. But with regards to the friendly amendment to the second.
I'm not sure if to ask you the question, Councilman Shaw, that the press release, I think, is a natural process of how we're going to educate the community and the next hearing will be happening in February. So I'm not exactly sure of why to do an additional press release when we're going to come back in February.
Can I give you my reasoning? I will take the actions by the applicant after the Planning Commission meeting to where RI released on their Facebook that the Planning Commission unanimously approved the large volume transfer station, but didn't clarify everything else that went on in that meeting. I want to make sure that we've taken the time and done our due diligence to hear this and go through a thoughtful process, hearing all the facts, so that the public understands exactly what's coming back before us on the 5th, and there's no miscommunication by any party.
Okay. Well, I see your point. I hear your point, I should say. I haven't seen it yet. And as long as the press release is within one page and a few bullet points, I think we're coming back in February. I just don't think that it's necessary to add additional work to the staff when we're so close to finishing this. I think it would be most appropriate if we did something after in February when we determined whatever the result would be, instead of doing something just a little premature from my view.
So the point is they're going to find out anyway, and you don't have a problem with them waiting until after things are finalized on February 5th versus right now.
It's probably already out on the Facebook, as one of the audience members said, so yes.
Right.
Yes.
But we have nothing officially from us yet, so you'd rather wait until things are done and after
I'm okay
February
with a
5th?
one-page press release, few bullet points and,
Okay.
yeah.
So I take that as you approve the second.
With the amendment being a small press release with a few bullet points.
Mr. Mayor, there were a few slides that were presented by Dennis Cook that I think captured a lot of the salient points that we can put into such a release that would cause a minimal requirement of staff time, and we could still achieve the purposes that were desired by expressed by
Essentially going to
Councilman
be
Shaw.
a cut and paste. I don't know, as long as we have complete information, I don't think we have to
We'll
limit to
capture
one
the
page.
salient points.
Right.
Yeah.
Takes three,
Okay.
so be it.
Okay.
The mayor has the gist of my
Yeah,
motion.
okay.
And Mr. Mayor, only from a technical procedure, so the vice mayor has agreed to generally do a press release. The second, Councilmember Espandola, wants limitations on that of a certain size. As such, the vice mayor would need to give the nod that he has a comfort level with that before the vote could go through.
I'm teasing.
This used to be simple, at least in 2018, but I guess here we are.
Okay.
We just need to make sure that everybody's nodding the same direction on the same thing so that the city clerk has, and staff have clear direction.
Before I make the motion, Councilman Espandola, how's a quarter page ad? How's a quarter page ad? That should be more than enough?
Councilman.
What font?
No, okay, never mind. Okay.
Take.
What, Councilmember Espandola, yes, I agree to put what you said. We'll just get this over with. I agree to put what you said. There's my first.
Then
There's my first.
Then there's been a motion with a friendly amendment, and Mr. Mayor, it is yours for the taking of the vote. Thank you.
All right.
Are we having fun tonight?
Yes.
So we have a motion and a friendly amendment that we're going to approve. Essentially, we're going to continue the item to the meeting of February 5th, direct staff to prepare a resolution approving the project as modified and updated by the conditions agreed to by both parties, and to return the resolution on February 5th for council consideration, and prepare a brief but thorough and accurate press release informing the public of what we did here tonight. Oh, geez.
To be coordinated through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Just kidding, by the way. It's all good. Got it?
Got it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? There we go. Approved. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Cunin.
Step one.
Give a couple minutes for people to go have a cocktail. It'll be good.
That's all right.
Hey, you know what?
I was just telling this guy, my shop down the street. If I had a deal with what you guys are dealing with, I'd be outraged. I mean, this is all that you're paying. We do whatever we want at my shop. We had 10 trees, they were all dying, but just now I can't ask permission. That's because you don't have a complaint. Well, I'm telling you that, I don't care. You know? So,
That's true. He could. You have, but they don't always something unless they're important. That's the problem.
have a good night.
All right, we will continue. And then we're down to public communication part of our agenda. You're welcome and encouraged if anybody would like to participate in the meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinion of the group. We have no written requests.
No written requests
All right.
received. Thank you.
Anybody from the public would like to speak, please feel free. Don't know if we have one right there. Nope, you turned right. We're good. Consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion, unless members of the city council staff or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Would anyone like to speak from the public like to speak? All right. So, consent calendar, looking for action on that.
Well, I guess I'll do it. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar, items 8, 9, and 10.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. On to business from the city council. And at this time, before we get to our council members, I'd like to ask Steve, our city manager, Steve Krager, if he'd like to say a couple words about the new year. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do have a few prepared words, but just a quick comment going back to the beginning of the meeting. Seeing the enthusiasm with which Officer Cooper is embracing his new role as sergeant, I think for many of us reassures us that we're in the right profession. It was just inspiring for me to see that. So, Honorable Mayor and council members, the new year is upon us, and I am excited for the future of Yuba City. A new bridge, new parks, and new commercial establishments are just part of what we have to look forward to in 2019. In support of this future is an organization that is second to none. Our community is blessed with a dedicated group of employees who work every day to advance quality service, innovation, and leadership in Yuba City. They carry with them an equal sense of pride in what they do and humility in knowing that they are on the search for continuous improvement in everything they do. With continuous improvement, both organizationally and personally, comes change. As much as it can be a very human tendency to resist change, we must recognize when it has arrived and choose to embrace it. In this specific regard, I choose the need for personal change. And so I have chosen to transition from the position of city manager. I've had the good fortune of being part of this great organization for 19 years, and my departure is admittedly bittersweet. However, with change comes opportunity, and I eagerly look forward to the next chapter of my life, and will leave this organization with a feeling of excitement for the future. My last day with the city will be February 15th, 2019. That said, my commitment to the ongoing success of this organization remains, and I will assist your council to ensure a smooth transition. In closing, I will simply say thank you. Thank you to the many elected officials whom I have served over my career. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve this community and the employees of this great organization. So thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council.
And thank you for everything, Steve. I know that probably did not come lightly, and after a lot of consideration. Of course, it's a surprise to all of us, but
it was never not intended to surprise. It was probably intended to share equally, and I honor the role that you as a council have continued to vest in me. I see myself as serving as a shepherd of this organization. I inherited a great organization, and my job was to shepherd it along. And you know you have a great organization to take forward. So as much as the person can change, this organization, we all know, will continue to be a great one. So it's with that excitement. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much. You've been a wonderful steward of that role over there, and we wish you the best. All right. That being said, Councilman Baumgarten.
Wow.
Yep.
Having left the organization and having had a chance to work with you, well, let me back up. Having left the organization, I know it's difficult, and I'm at a loss for words, but I look forward to the opportunity to speak with you privately. Yeah. council reports. Continue to attend orientations from the various city departments. Appreciate the meeting of the staff, their enthusiasm, and as the city manager just said, it is a quality organization with a lot of good people doing a lot of good things. Consistently, I've been gone for about nine and a half years, and it's very welcoming to come back and see just the energy level that's out there. As far as attendance, I went to my very first LAFCO meeting. Of note was a continuance of some policies that LAFCO needs to adopt. There's a fair amount of new folks or new representatives on the LAFCO, so those were continued because the county had a few concerns as well, and those will be coming up at the next meeting. They did mention that there are 2 potential annexations on the west side of the city that may come to us during this calendar year, and as those make their way through, I'm sure we'll be made aware of those. Attended numerous swearing in of Sutter County officials. They have been very welcoming and are very encouraged to continue a good working relationship with not only the city of Yuba City, but this city council, and I'm looking forward to working with them as well. And had an opportunity to attend the retirement of Supervisor Larry Munger on Saturday. I'm sure other council folks will talk about it up here. Larry Munger was very important person to me during my career. Very fair man, a cooperator, and he leaves quite a legacy. But he's still in the community, so he's still accessible. With that, I thank you for the opportunity to share. And next.
Very good. Councilmember Espandola, what's been going on?
I also want to say, Steve, it's a surprise for me to know that you're leaving us. And the short amount of time that I've had the opportunity to work with you, I have really appreciated your talent, your compassion, your good heart. I see that, and so I'm a little off my game now thinking about you leaving us. So I just want to say that in advance. There have been many events that we've shared together and attended. I have the meetings that I'm assigned to is with the Homeless Consortium and by County Homeless, and so I don't know if Councilman Cardosa will be speaking of that particular issue. So I attended that. Progress is being made. A strategic plan is being developed by the Bi-County Homeless Group, and so more to report in the future. One item that I would like to bring up through the mayor to further discuss, and I'm not asking for an action item or anything at this moment, but just an opportunity to talk about the process that we're in soliciting community members to apply for the boards and commissions. And the application deadlines were changed from December 2018 to this week, which is on this Friday. And our current process includes that our mayor and vice mayor screen the applicants, and in that, with the final candidates being then brought forward to us in the second meeting in February. So what I'm requesting is for our city staff to bring forth for the next February 5th meeting to hopefully look at some options in changing this traditional process that we currently have practiced, and allowing perhaps council members to contribute in the process and decision making. And perhaps the city staff can look at how other jurisdictions are doing this locally to see that things are being done somewhat consistently across the area and not differently just here in the city. So, and I firmly believe that I think as an elected official that we should have some sort of input in the candidates as they're selected, and it's an obligation to really be part of that entire process. So I'm bringing that forth for a discussion or a city, for our city staff to bring additional information to us for the next meeting.
Okay, so you'd like to agendize a discussion for February 5th?
If you're open to having that,
Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, so we would need 3 council members to, so we have 1, we need 2 more to agree with that. Or in order to move forward, is that correct, sir?
So from the normal procedure that we've practiced, so the council, if there's something that they desire, there's a desired adds to the agenda. You're exactly spot on, Mr. Mayor, that there would be the concurrence of 2 other council members. Taking a step, there may be just a request to have staff gather the information and present it to your council. Whether or not Council Member Espindola wants that to be formally presented on the 5th or just made available to your council, and then you can analyze it and then bring it back for consideration in the future based upon the analysis, and then decide whether or not you want something agendized. Or, Council Member, I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you feel you'd like it to be more pressing for the 5th, then that would be your recommendation.
If we can agendize it for the 5th, that would be preferred.
Okay. So that way we would need 2 more council members to concur with that.
Help me understand the policy. I know that having gone through that, it's 2 council people, typically the mayor and the vice mayor get together and they do the screening. Do they do all the screening traditionally?
No, thank you, Mr. Boomgarten. It needs to be clarified. So, with regard to boards and commissions, it's the mayor and the vice mayor who screen the candidates, and then it's upon the recommendation of the mayor to the council, and then it's dependent upon the concurrence of the council as a whole as to whether or not that person ultimately gets appointed. And I believe the question is, can we involve the more council members as part of the screening process rather than having the vetting occurred by the mayor and vice mayor? That's just traditionally the way we've done it. I don't believe there's anything necessarily in our code, but it is past practice. And then it's brought before your council as a whole for consideration. And frankly, there have been instances where the council as a whole have differed in opinion and said, no, we don't prefer to appoint that person to that commission as the recommendation of the mayor.
Thanks for that, through the mayor. Thanks for the explanation. I guess the interest, if I might, Councilwoman Espindola, is to be more involved with that process rather than just come to the point where you have to vote yes or no.
Correct.
Does either of you 2 esteemed gentlemen, can you weigh in on that process? I assume that once you get more than 3 of us, or once you get 3 of us, it's an open meeting.
Well, see, that's in the legal side. The city attorney can comment on that, but you're exactly right. Having 2 council members have that ad hoc interview process allows for more intimate conversation, and it doesn't enter into this type of realm where you have people moving through. And there's also, we do a background check on everyone as well. And so that's currently part of that vetting process that, frankly, if someone doesn't pass a background, then they're not brought before your council. Not that that is meant to be a hindrance to the process, but that's, once again, more of a background process before the public process occurs.
Through the mayor again. Again, question for you, Councilwoman, is do you want to be involved at the application screening process or more involved in the actual interview process of the applicants?
I'm suggesting that first it was my thought to have our staff look at other jurisdictions to understand how other jurisdictions are doing this. And if we were able to divide the review, that a group would paper screen and then a group could interview. So where it wouldn't be the entire council at one time.
It would not be?
No, not at one time.
What kind of already is not all of us
Go ahead.
interviewing?
But I think, again, if I might,
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is more involvement at the application process.
Exactly.
And then a screening committee of 2 based upon a review of the applications and a rating by all 5 of us.
Correct.
So I go back up here to
If
whether
I may-
that's permissible or not.
If I may, 1 second, just if you don't mind.
Sure, please.
I think the application review process, I know as long as I'm sitting here, we're going to interview everybody who qualifies. We have a set standard of qualifications already established, and I'm not
We do
sure
interview, we do.
screen-
If you submit an application,
Everyone who
correct,
qualifies,
sir.
I'll interview them and give them a shot at it. You know, and if they do well, fine, we'll have a recommendation by less than all of us. And then, of course, they pass a background check. My concern with the idea of eventually getting somebody sitting here before all 5 of us, especially the youth commission, you're not gonna have anybody apply. It's gonna be tough as far as the number of applicants that come in here. That's gonna be a mental block for a lot of people, and I'm kind of an informal guy, even though I'm sitting up here in the middle of the bench with a tie on. I think you can have get to know somebody a lot better in an informal setting around the table in my office, and you can get a real feel for them as a person when they're not all dressed up standing in here with a microphone in their face.
So let me just jump out with a recommendation. I don't think that we're going to have the information in time to be able to address this round. The positions close January 18th, this Friday. So the clerk's office has got the processing going as it currently is. So I cannot foresee that you would, by February 5th, be able to make a policy change that would necessarily effectuate it for this round. What we can bring to you is, to Councilwoman Espindola's request, if you desire, is the package of information that says this is how everybody else does it. And then at least you're going to be able to have an informed conversation at that future meeting, be it on the 5th or be the following meeting, simply with the substance that says this is how the surrounding organizations do it. And then you're going to be able to grasp onto the pros and cons of what others have experienced. I just have trepidation with this conversation continuing without us as staff being able to really give you good information to work off of. So.
And thanks for adding that, because having not experienced the process, newly elected, the idea that we have, commissioners representing us, and as an example with recycling industry this evening, a discord not that we had that process. So I would say that what you said, Steve, was probably a better asking our staff, city staff, to put an analysis together. And so how do I remove my motion then? And then
If there are 2 other council members that reach the same consensus as your suggestion, then staff would be directed to proceed in gathering that information. I work for the 5 of you, not individually. So it takes the majority of the council to say we want staff resources to be invested in this area.
And Councilwoman, if I may, it doesn't take a formal motion. You just need 3 nods of 3 council members willing to do that, per the mayor being able to identify 3 people who are nodding and have a comfort level with that. Thank you.
And just to clarify, if I may, now we're down to researching how other jurisdictions do it and provide that information back to us so we can decide if we want to move forward.
with the additional information that Steve just gave to us, which I was not aware of prior to.
I'm sorry, what was that I provided?
Yeah, I don't
that you
remember
weren't-
either.
that we're too far along in this process to affect change.
Unless I look over at one Tara Locke, who's usually overly ambitious in trying to meet every need of the city, but
We can certainly do it, but it will delay the process probably till end of March.
Okay.
And the terms expire February 28th.
So
generally we don't want to have commissions or boards without people on them
Right.
because it delays
So we're
the
back to
process.
looking into it for a year from now, if
That's
we
what
change it.
I
I'm gonna take
suggest,
the opportunity
sir.
right now also to express my opinion that, especially when something like this, we can look into what other jurisdictions do, but that does not obligate us to do what they do. What works for us, regardless of what anybody else does, as long as we're within the law and we're fair.
That's a policy discretion of the council. Sir, correct.
That being said, do we have two other folks that would like to move forward with the recommendation?
I have no problem supporting Councilwoman Espindola's request for information.
Okay.
Yeah, and through the mayor, we're just, because we went full circle and I'm down here, but this is basically exploratory. We want to see what everybody else does to see if there's a better way we can possibly do it in the future. That's really where we're heading.
That's where I ended up. I started with the agenda and then moved down to that.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Then I fully support
Okay.
council member.
Well, there's your three.
Espindola.
You get 4.
4. All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like the rest of my fellow council members, I've been attending a lot of the swearing-in ceremonies and getting my committee assignments well in hand. And of those, most of the committees are still just seating the new members and getting the chairs and starting to move forward. There are 2 bits of information that I do want to bring back to you from a couple of the commissions and committees. The Regional Water Authority, we need to make sure that it is on our radar with our new governor when it comes time for the budget and we're looking at Prop 218 and the water rates. He has already proposed an additional tax on water, and he's proposed an additional tax on bottled water. So we got to be conscientious of that when we start looking at rates. Likewise, there is a lot of issues with Prop 218 that needs to be cleaned up. Right now, there's nothing on the horizon to fix that, but the RWA is looking for someone to step up and basically legally challenge it to fix those issues which concern turn-off fees and things of that nature and the actual rates itself. So that's what we have coming out of there. No action, but we just need to have that on our radar. The other one is the new county oversight. We were formed for all the redistricting as the spin down from Governor Brown. And again, the new governor has indicated he wants to bring them back. So we're proceeding forward with the wind-up that's been going on for several years. But we also have the foresight that we may be a mute committee in 6 to 8 months and be spinning it back the other way.
All right.
So those are the 2 things. Along those lines, Mr. Kreger, thank you so much for your years of service with the city. I know you've done a lot of good things over the years, and I want to say thank you personally. Also want to say, what happens, the new kids on the block come in and you decide to leave the family. So, I wish you the best, but it definitely caught us all by surprise tonight. So I do want to wish you the best. Mr. Mayor, I do want to bring up one other item, though, that I think that we need to press forward with, and I would like to request this council to look into. Did not want to go into it earlier this evening, but we have had miscommunication issues from our executive staff to the council. And I was completely caught off guard with the issue earlier this evening with the use permit from RI. Our executive team received that back on December 18th, which was the recusal, which was included in the public information. I found out about it Thursday. There's been several other things that has kind of fallen through the cracks, and in light of the new council, we got more than 50% is brand new. We have a brand new city attorney. Now the light that we're probably going to have a new city manager, I think that this request is very timely. I would like for us to set a closed item agenda to sit down with our city attorney and in the interim sit down with Mr. Kreger as our city manager, if we can do it by the 5th, with what our expectations are going forward and as far as what we expect as a council so that we can be clear with the information coming our way and working as a team to better serve the citizens. And I think it's going to be more important that we have that prior to Mr. Kreger's February 15th departure, because we're going to be passing that information on to the interim city manager, whoever that might be, until we have a new city manager. So I think those expectations really need to be dialed in and set, and I would ask you to agendize a closed item session for this council to meet with our two employees.
I think that'd also give us an opportunity to get your valuable institutional knowledge and input as to what you would like to see our expectations of your predecessor, not your predecessor. Successor, there you go.
I can tell you about the predecessor.
Yeah, I bet you can.
Can't tell you yet about the successor.
Tough shoes to fill for sure. So I think that's, like you said, timely and a good idea. I will be number 2 on that idea. Anybody have a number 3? Actually, all you need is me at this point. So we'll do that. We'll go ahead and set an agendized item for a closed session at our next meeting.
To the mayor, if I could
Sure.
make one additional suggestion, given the announcement this evening, perhaps we could also add an agenda or closed session item for the appointment of an interim or acting city manager. We have a process in place to deal with that, but it would at least provide an opportunity for the council to provide feedback and get input from Mr. Kruger regarding that particular issue.
That was on my list right here. Exactly. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor Cardoza.
Yep, Steve, totally caught me off guard. It's been wonderful working with you for many years. Many years. We're going to miss you. And starting off, we'll start off New Year's morning, Polar Bear Plunge. Yeah, it was a brisk morning. The north wind was blowing pretty good. So Mayor Harris, Councilmember Espandola was there to watch me jump in the pool. We had 25 sign up and only 18 jumped in. A few of them didn't show up because of the cold wind. So the water was 42 degrees and it wasn't bad, but when you ran across the pool to get in the building, the cold wind made it down to 30. So that was a real fun time. We had a great time, took pictures. It was a great time for New Year's morning. Like I said, we had quite a few swearing-ins with county and superintendent of schools. I'm just going to mention our 3 new Yuba City police officers, Officer Ernest, Kowski, and Minks. We were there for their swearing in. We all went to the Chamber Gala last Friday night. It was a wonderful time. Had a great time. Also attended Larry Munger's retirement party. And I had the honor of meeting President Nielsen. He is the president of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in Chico. Wonderful man. He had more security than President Trump. He was very important man. It was a great honor to meet him. And then last but not least, I have the honor of being I'm an association board member for our Community Memorial Museum of Sutter County. Another little fun thing to do in the community, and I'm very happy and honored to be on that also. And with that, that's it for me. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor.
All right, very. Thank you.
Sorry. Sorry.
A lot has already been said. I was at the Polar Bear Plunge too. I got to push my foster son in there, so that was great. But SACOG, I tell you what, we have former council member Buckland here in the audience, and he told me, I said, boy, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hose. And he goes, nope, it's going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant. And you are not kidding, my friend. So I am still adjusting to that. We have another meeting on Thursday, but you were also correct in the fact that they're as a group of good, smart people. So I'm looking forward to filling your very large shoes, sir, and doing the best I can in my role for the city. Thank you very much, sir. That is a very big job. Also, I'm a member of Sabufka now as well, which is going to be great. A lot of work there. We are going to miss Mike Inamini, who we were awarded or recognized tonight. I'm back to Dr. Nelson from he's the LDS president. What an honor that was. I don't happen to be of that specific faith. However, I think Darren mentioned to me that they consider him to be the prophet for everybody. And when you stand, I got to chat with him quasi-privately for about 90 seconds, him and his wife. And you can sense it. You know, when you shake his hand, you look into his eyes. What a terrific opportunity, and I will never forget that. So Darren, thank you for the suggestion. Thank you for ensuring that I got right in. I was a little bit late for some personal issues going on, and you know, also I want to recognize, you know, he's the leader of your church, and you would have had an opportunity to meet him, and you gave that up so I could. I respect that. Thank you very much. So, one thing we're going to do is we're going to attend a League of California Cities conference. All pretty much most of us, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday down in Sacramento. We're looking forward to some good, productive information for that. Larry Munger's retirement was great. And then we are going to have a candlelight vigil for Officer Natalie Corona from Davis Police Department, who was murdered in the light of duty on January 10th. That will be tomorrow at the police department, rain or shine, at 7:30 at night. If it is raining, go around through the open gate, and we're going to go into the awnings in the carport area so we can still light candles because we're technically still outside. So hope to see all, if not most of you there tomorrow. With that being said, I would like to close in honor of Officer Corona tonight. Thank you very much.